So, hi everybody, I'm Marie Jenkins from Advance Your Wellbeing, and welcome to our second season of The Secret Diary of Marie Jenkins 47 Plus. Now, today I'm super excited to welcome back Judy Gibbs, who, when I first interviewed you for season one, you was Judy Chadwick. So, congratulations to you. You've had nuptials in between. So if anybody wants to go back and have a listen to Judy's first episode, you'll find it under Judy Chadwick. So I'm very pleased to welcome Judy with us today. Hiya, Judy.
Hiya, thanks Marie, thank you for inviting me.
It's my pleasure. So before we go into today's in conversation with, I'm just going to give a bit of background. So Judy Gibbs is the Director of Skills at Worcestershire Local Enterprise Partnership. She's the Skills and Investment Group Manager at Worcestershire County Council. And creative skills and employability is her speciality.
Apparently.
Very impressive, very impressive. So, talking of Worcestershire and the local landscape in terms of employability and skills, my first question that I want to put towards you today is, we're in Worcestershire is the county that we're in, and it's very forward-thinking county, and has had, I believe, from somebody on the outside looking in, has a huge transformational approach in terms of the future of employability and skills in the county. So with this in mind, could you give me an overview from your perspective of what's happening in terms of those employability and skills?
Yeah, I mean, I think just to give you a bit of background as to why Worcestershire is so invested in this. So you've probably all heard me speak before about Worcestershire and its ageing workforce.
Yeah.
So there are a number of contributing factors. So Worcestershire has 1 in 3 people in its workforce over 50, and that's a national thing. So actually in England, that is now the number that is in the majority of counties. However, Worcestershire reached that in 2019, so about 3 years earlier than most other regions. And in some of our industries, it's even more prevalent. So public service, for instance, and manufacturing, it's more like 1 in 2. And you can imagine why this is an issue. Alongside that, what Worcestershire has, and again, it's not a Worcestershire specific phenomena, it's a county shire phenomena, is what we see is a lot of our young people, when they reach 18 and they make the choices about where to go to university, they go to university elsewhere, and that's absolutely fine, and we encourage that, but they don't return at the point when we would want them to in order to start their career. And I think what we've been trying to do for the last, probably since about 2015 really, is work with our students before they get to the point of making those key choices, be it GCSEs, be it A levels, be it post 18, to tell them what the opportunity is here in our fantastic county. Worcestershire again has got some really great opportunities for young people, and not a lot of people realise, and we talk about it quite a lot, that Malvern, for instance, has got the highest concentration of highly skilled people in the country.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of really great opportunity in Worcestershire, which I don't think we talk about enough to our young people. So in about 2015, the Local Enterprise Partnership and the council started an initiative that's now called Inspiring Worcestershire. And underneath that, there's sort of 2 strands, and more recently a third, that kind of contribute to all of this young people into the workforce. So the first one is our Careers and Enterprise Company work. So we work with the Careers and Enterprise Company nationally, and they help us to work and engage with educational establishments. So in Worcestershire, we work with every school, not just secondary schools, but also our middle schools, our special educational needs schools, and our pupil referral units. And what we do is we support them with their careers planning. So we have lovely people like Marie who work with us. And what Marie does is she goes and works with a school and helps them think through how they engage more employer activities, or as we call them, employer encounters, into their school. Because the only way that young people know what they know is if we help them to discover that.
Yeah.
Because how do you know what you love if no one's actually kind of told you what it is? What typically young people learn is by the things that they see. And you know, they're not necessarily seeing our high-tech jobs in cybersecurity or our advanced manufacturing jobs. What they're seeing is how to be a YouTuber and Love Island and things like this. So actually what we need to do is kind of open up their mind to, this is Worcestershire, this is what our economy looks like, and these are the opportunities. What we also know is that the more a young person has employer encounters, the less likelihood that they will find themselves in their life either not in education when they should be, or unemployed.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of work to support that through our Inspiring Worcestershire drive. So we encourage the schools to not just work with the majority of students, but to ensure that all students get a really good positive careers experience from year 7 upwards. We also have our Worcestershire Apprenticeships brand. So we very much see one of the ways of us retaining young people into the county and getting more young people transitioning into our workforces as through apprenticeships. We set up Worcestershire Apprenticeships in 2015, and essentially if you're a parent, if you're a young person, if you're a school, if you're an employer and you want information on how to become, how to access apprenticeships, then we have a phone line that you can contact and a plethora of resources through our website. We also do things like we celebrate the success of apprenticeships once a year. We have a very glitzy glam award ceremony, which is lovely. It's coming back live this year, which is very exciting, and nominations are open now. So if you've got a really great apprentice or one that's just completed that you want to celebrate, or you think what you're doing is fantastic as an employer in terms of apprenticeships, then enter our awards. And then the third area is our Worcestershire careers. So acknowledging that over the last 2 years, our young people have had a really disrupted time, as we all have, but you know, it's more prevalent on our young people. Actually, what we've tried to do with Worcestershire Careers is offer some additional support. So we put in a helpline, we've got an events programme. So at the moment, we've got post 16, post 18, so talking about the different options, so apprenticeships, further education, sixth form, university. We've got events that are running, and I think we're on, this week is our 4th one, and I'm going to say I've got no idea where it is. I know next week's Evesham, but we're running one in each district. And then we do kind of webinars under that brand as well to support people. And hopefully very soon we're going to have a physical drop-in space, which is really exciting. But we're working on that any day now.
Fantastic, fantastic. I mean, I completely echo what you're saying about the Inspiring Worcestershire website. I mean, you think of a website that you just go to and have a look at this information, but on there are so many resources, as well as the live jobs, the apprenticeship jobs. There's a whole plethora of jobs on there as well. So, you know, if apprenticeships are more...
We've got kind of 3 different sites now, which kind of they all have links to each other, but we've got our Skills for Worcestershire, which is about, it's got 3 areas on it, and it's, you know, if you're a business and you're looking at succession planning, there's some tools on there for you. If you're a young person and you're thinking what's your next career steps, there's some tools on there for you. And if you're out of work, again, there's some tools on there for you. If you're looking at apprenticeships, we've got our Worcestershire Apprenticeship site, but also we've got our new site that we started 12 months ago, our Worcestershire Jobs site.
Yeah.
And it's a really simple concept. We knew that a lot of our residents obviously were struggling with employment over the pandemic. So all we did was we brought out a website that essentially brings together all of the online vacancies and puts them in one place. So it's just a more efficient way of searching for a job, essentially. It's not perfect, nothing ever is, but you know, it's another route for people to kind of get to those vacancies. And there's some really good signposting on there as well for resources and support to help you.
Yeah, I agree. It is well worth, and we'll put all of the information in the description so people can go along and have a look at those websites. And I completely echo what you said about Malvern as well. I mean, I've been involved with the Malvern Festival of Innovation in October that's run by Adrian Burden. And there's an absolute phenomenal schools day that he runs every year. And there's so many people there from different STEM industries that hopefully will inspire the next generation. Because, I mean, you've got Malvern Science Park literally around the corner there. There are so many opportunities for young people to stay in the county because we want to keep our talent here.
I think it's an interesting, you know, things have evolved. So, you know, we go back to when we were younger, you know, and I kind of lived in a fairly smallish village, but, you know, if there were businesses in the village, I knew what they did because I probably knew someone who worked there. But actually what's happened is we've kind of, you know, changed as a society, is that some things have grown and they're bigger businesses, and you know, we still kind of know what they do. So, you know, Morgan Motors, for instance, you know, it's fairly obvious what they do. You know, Worcester Bosch, it's fairly obvious what they do. But then there are a lot of companies that actually, you know, have got these names that don't necessarily reflect what they do. And they're not what I call run seal companies. So you kind of have to dig underneath the surface to discover what is the organisation about and what are the careers within it. So it's a bit of a harder job. You know, we spent a lot of time, we were talking about this internally, we spent a lot of time creating these jobs with very strange job titles. So we don't have business administrators anymore. We have business support officers. Well, you know, when you're searching for a job, you search for administration. So you're not going to find a business support officer job. You know, we kind of almost need to, as organizations, go back to basics and start marketing ourselves back to young people to say, well, this is who we are, this is what we do, and this is the careers within it. And we get a lot of I remember years ago a school said to me, you know, it's really difficult to do employer engagement. It's really, really difficult because, you know, we're here, we're in the middle of nowhere, there's no companies around us, we have to get a bus. And I said to this school at the time, do you know what that company is just over there across the road? And they're like, no, it's just a grey shed. And actually it's one of our biggest companies in the county. Wow. And they had no awareness of who they were and what they do. They never crossed the road. So I think sometimes, you know, it's about engaging better, and we use, you know, through our Inspiring Worcestershire, we work with businesses to help them promote their companies, and we work with people like Marie to engage those companies into our schools to get them understanding where the opportunity is.
And it's funny that you said about Worcestershire Bosch and that people know what they do, because ultimately you think Worcestershire Bosch, you think boilers. And yet I was at Hatton Country World the other week, and there's a bike shop there that sells e-bikes. And apparently all of their battery and mechanics on these e-bikes come from Worcestershire Bosch. So it shows that they're being really innovative in terms of, you know, what sort of areas they're going into, which helps from a sustainability point of view. But you've got the likes of G-Tech as well, which are very forward thinking and innovative. And cyber security is huge. Who knew?
Who knew? It is huge. But cybersecurity is I think there are a number of careers which sound really exciting. Cybersecurity is one, 5G is another, you know, these big technical names. But ultimately, what we need is we need more young people to study the building blocks of that so that they can specialise. Because actually, you know, in years to come, 5G may not be the thing. It'll probably be 10G, who knows? And cybersecurity, there might be a new new thing there. So
Yeah.
we need them to have that building level of skills in things like digital engineering, manufacturing, and all those STEM-based subjects, to be able to kind of access those careers. And I think more widely than that, actually, all careers moving forward are going to have an element of digital within them, and also an element of sustainability. So, you know, young people are really interested in sustainability. They all want to ensure that the planet is there for as long as possible, which is fantastic. But I think, you know, more and more companies are going to have to consider their impact on the environment through government policy. And I think young people are going to be looking at them to say, right, what's my role in sustainability? How do I help to move this forward? And, you know, GTEC and Vax and Worcester and all these people are already thinking about this. And they're really great examples to talk to young people about, because actually if you talk to them about sustainability, they light up because they really want to understand it.
Yeah, I agree. So technology is a focus then for Worcestershire, along with STEM. Are there any other areas? I mean, things like construction or is it social care as well? You said about an ageing population.
Yeah, do you know, it's a really interesting one actually, because I think so Worcestershire, 24% of Worcestershire's employment is in public service, health and education. And over the pandemic, those are the areas that grew in employment, whereas some of those like manufacturing declined. So manufacturing actually became for the first time a sort of third biggest area of employment, whereas it's always been our second. But those health, education, public service areas kind of overtook that. And you know, it's a really interesting one because young people don't know what local authorities do. I mean, you know, probably most of us don't either. I work within one and I'm fairly sure I've got it sussed now, but it is a really, you know, it's a sort of unknown entity. So again, you know, I think there's a lot of, we need some of those traditional roles. So like you talked about social work, so social care, social work, construction, driving. We need some of those, what I'd call building blocks of our economy. And we need to kind of almost go back and talk about some of the things that we think are so obvious. We've almost stopped talking about them.
Yeah, I totally agree. They're the building blocks of main industries
without them we don't
for the
work,
economy.
do we? We don't work.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all part of the infrastructure. Now, to me, that sounds very forward thinking, very proactive in terms of thinking about the future workforce and that we want to attract people in. Can I just ask you a bit about people that are in the here and now? So the middle-aged people that may have been affected by the pandemic, because I know there's a lot of support out there for them as well. Am I right in thinking there's something called a midlife MOT? What's that?
Yeah, there is. So I like to disclaim at this point that it's a government term, so I can't be held responsible. There is one of my stakeholder partners who, when I talk about midlife MOT, kind of raises her eyebrow at me because she fits into the category, and I don't think she's very pleased about it. But the midlife MOT was a project that we did with DWP, and essentially it helps individuals to look at, who are over 50, to look at their futures. So it's about those years until they decide to retire, looking at their health, their wealth, and their career. So actually, you know, can you afford to retire, and when can you afford to retire? Well, we've all got pensions, but actually very, very rarely do you find that people understand their pensions and know when they can do what they can do. So they look at it almost a little bit too late. So it's a little bit of planning around that wealth element. And then the health piece is, are you as healthy as you need to be to keep working for as long as you need to keep working in order to be able to retire comfortably? And it gives you some tools and techniques there to think about. And then the third area is around your career. So actually, you know, the pandemic's accelerated our need for digital skills, and it's accelerated the fact that actually there's an expectation on everyone to have some form of digital skills, and that's only going to get more because you can see the way it's gone. You know, yes, it's about being on Zoom, it's about being on Teams, but also, you know, now a lot of people are looking for those efficiencies. They're recognizing, even in things like warehousing, they're recognizing they can't necessarily get physical staff, so they're having to automate their factories, warehouses. So if they're automating their warehouses, the skills that they need from their individuals are slightly different. Do you as an individual have those skills? And if not, how are you going to go about getting them? Because if you don't have them, you're probably not going to be able to earn the salary that you have earned for the amount of time you need to earn it in order to retire at the right point. The midlife MOT helps you to have a look at that. And then the flip of that is that the midlife MOT also helps employers, because if an individual understands when they think they're going to retire, then an employer can start to have a bit of a better thought process around replacing them and around when they kind of might need those young people coming in. But also, you know, wouldn't it be great to be able to have an open and honest conversation with your employer to say, do you know what, I'm thinking maybe 10 more years, and then after that, wow. But you know, we don't ask, we just wait for people to go, and then our businesses lose a huge amount of skills. And actually it would be great to be able to prepare for that. So that's what the midlife MOT is all about.
Can I just ask you, Judy, before we move on from that then, in terms of what's available for workplaces and skill support in the county, what's available there?
So at the moment, I mean, we've got a couple of things. So through the Worcestershire Growth Hub, you know, any business can give the Worcestershire Growth Hub a call, and they'll be able to advise on available grants, business grants and schemes. And there are a number around kind of workforce upskilling or reskilling at the moment. So there's one particularly which is aimed at workforce planning, because a lot of our businesses don't have succession plans in place. They haven't thought through that next steps. They're to some extent just busy doing the business. Perhaps they've got staff shortages, so it's fairly challenging to start thinking about, you know, 5 years, 10 years down the line. But there's some programs to help them do that. And then out of that will drop training needs. But we also have a program for if you as an individual or if you as an employer want to send someone on training, we've got a program called Skills Support for the Workforce.
Okay.
It's a European program, so it's not going to be around forever. But the European program will fund small medium enterprises in Worcestershire to uptake training.
Brilliant.
I think one of the sort of areas that we're encouraging people to look at is leadership and management. And the reason that we're kind of encouraging this is because if you are going to be taking, you know, young people into your workforce, you need to understand how to appropriately manage them, how to
absolutely,
because otherwise it won't be very successful.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And the other thing I wanted to say is I've had a lot of feedback about how fantastic the Kickstart scheme has been. So can you just give me sort of an overview from your perspective how well you feel that's been and what it is for people that are listening that may like to explore the opportunity?
Wow. So sadly, it's actually finished. It's closed. It closed last week. So in June 2020, we'll all remember that Rishi Sunak stood up and said every 16 to 24-year-olds will be offered a job. And the outcome of that was the Kickstart programme. So it was a Department for Work and Pensions programme delivered in Worcestershire by Herefordshire and Worcestershire Chamber of Commerce and ourselves, and a number of other small different organisations with specialisms. There was housing. I think there was some that was through the FSB and other mechanisms. We have delivered about 280 young people into employment, and the Chamber is a similar number. I think whilst that's a fantastic success, isn't it great that as businesses and as a county we were able to offer kind of 550, 600 young people opportunities. That's fantastic, and you know, can't take away from that. And I think for those young people we've provided some really great opportunities. A lot of employers have kept them on, so that's really positive as well. We've got one in our team who started fairly recently, and you it astounds me the amount of creativity they can bring if you're asking them the right questions.
Yeah.
She's doing really well. But I think the sort of flip side of that for me was, unfortunately, for one reason or another, I think we could have done more. And I'm not saying that to criticise my team. I think DWP struggled to activate it as quickly as the announcement came. They themselves obviously were having significant issues. And I think if we'd have been able to activate that quicker, then I think we could have had a much higher number, because we did have a lot of really keen employers who wanted to get involved.
I'd say to that though,
560.
Judy, it's certainly an opportunity to learn. First time of doing it, and it was such a success. Hopefully in the future there'll be something similar along those lines. If it was so popular and it's had such great outcomes for the young people involved, then hopefully something like that sort of scheme will come back again.
Yeah, I mean, and I've seen a few of these schemes before in times of trouble, let's say. So there have been a few of these kind of 16 to 24-year-old schemes when youth unemployment has risen, and they are always really popular.
I'm from the YTS days, Judy, so I certainly remember them.
Yes,
you're younger than me, so.
Not much. So I think what it did though, which is really great, is because of the press and the amount of talking about it that government did, it meant that a lot of organisations that have never looked at employing young people considered it. And actually then what we hope from that is that they've seen the benefits of employing a young person, and actually those organisations will then say, well, let's have a look at an apprenticeship. What's an apprenticeship? How does that work? So again, we're really pleased, because over the pandemic, apprenticeships really struggled, as you could potentially expect them to, and nationally again they were down. But coming out of the pandemic, Worcestershire has recovered much faster than other areas, and we think that's partially because we do a lot to promote apprenticeships. There's still some areas where always, I'm never happy, we can always do better, but it's fantastic the numbers coming out, and hopefully some really good opportunities to kind of keep pushing and getting more young people into the workforce, because that is ultimately at the moment one of the key routes that employers need to consider to get members of staff, because there aren't huge numbers of untapped resource. Yes, we've got higher claimants than we've had before, but actually it's a really interesting one, because people's needs do appear on the surface to be greater, and a lot of that is because we have got employers that are holding additional headcounts, and they're partially doing that because actually when they get someone in their workforce that gets COVID, they need to cover that, but also because they know when they let that person go how hard it's going to be in 3 months, 6 months time to re-recruit. So they're holding artificially higher headcounts, and that's sort of affecting the labour market a little bit in terms of available labour.
That's interesting. Who knew that? Judy, I'm so sorry. We've just literally got through over half an hour, and we could carry on. I mean, hats off to you and the team, both at Worcestershire LEP County Council and the Careers and Enterprise Company, which I'm very proud to say I'm involved with. I think you're all doing a phenomenal job. I think if you're a young adult, older student, teenager, then please take a look at the websites. They are all there available for you. There's also a tremendous amount on there for parents. So that can be really helpful too. So thank you so much for joining me, Judy. I'm sorry to cut you in mid-flow because we had so much to talk about, but it just gives everybody a taster.
Yeah, no worries. And thank you, Marie, because, you know, I've said this to you before, but without people like you, we can't deliver the objectives that we have. We do it hand in hand. We don't succeed without you. So thank you very much for your support. We appreciate it.
Oh, it's a team effort. Team
Cheers, Team
effort.
Worcestershire.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining me today, Judy. All the best.
No worries. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.